Trump's on trial in two places. The breakdown starts now. Good evening and welcome to The Breakdown. I'm Tara Setmayer. This is the Rick Wilson. And as you can see, I'm on the road, but Rick Wilson is home in Tallahassee. But we have a huge show for you tonight because it's been a hell of a news day. We've got Trump on trial in in New York. We've got the Scotus hearing about presidential immunity going on in DC today. We had the Arizona indictments come down yesterday, more fake elector indictments out in Arizona now. We had the Pennsylvania election results. Yes, Michigan as well. I mean, there's just so much happening. And we have a great guest to break down all of the legal stuff because Rick and I are not lawyers, but Harry Litman is, who is a friend of the show. We're going to bring him on in a couple of minutes. But first, Rick, you and I are going to talk a little bit about what happened in Scotus today because Harry was in the courtroom in New York. So we're going to bring him in after that and then get his thoughts on what we on Scotus. But I don't know if you listened to some of the oral arguments today, but I did on my plane ride up to Boston. I'm in Cambridge up at Harvard. I'm speaking at a conference tomorrow on gender and politics at Harvard. And so I listened to most of it. And I have to say, Rick, that there were parts of it that I was like, okay, I like the way this is going. And then there were parts of it where I was like, are you freaking kidding me?
You know, Tara, here's where I came down on it. I already believe the court very deliberately timed the hearing to be as late as it could, for whatever set of reasons. And I was struck today that even though there were maybe 5 people on the court who were responsive to the argument about limiting, about at least having limited exposure and liability for the president.
Right.
There still seemed to be a kind of like lollygagging, lackadaisical nature to this in my mind, because it's like they didn't really mention in great depth the urgency of this case. This case is about a man who attempted to overthrow the federal government. This case is about a man who attempted to overthrow an election and deny millions of Americans their civil rights. This case is about a man whose followers, in pursuit of a broad conspiracy that we know now was in many, many states to try to overturn the election, sent his followers to the Capitol on January 6th. And so that bothered me, that there seemed to be sort of a slow pace here. Like, oh, we'll send it back down. And within a year or two, guys, if Donald Trump wins the presidency again, in a year or two, there won't be
correct
a pursuit of him ever. Because the argument, and interestingly enough, Trump's own lawyer about midway through sort of backed away from the extremist view of presidents have total immunity for everything always, and sort of stepped back a bit. But at the same time, he was asked in that colloquy with Justice Sotomayor about whether the president could decide someone should be assassinated and order it to be done legally. And he argued that case. And I will tell you something, if you live in a country where the executive can order the murder of a citizen for his own whim, for his own caprice, for his own value judgment of them, you don't live in a representative democracy or a republic or a constitutional republic or America. And, even Vladimir Putin probably wouldn't go out and say, yeah, the Constitution in Russia gives me the full authority to just kill who I want. He does it, but I don't think he would make the argument in public, which we saw today. And I think it's really sort of defining deviancy down about, you're hearing this more and more at rallies about violence and assassinations, more and more in the Trump world of that argument, again, that he has unlimited ambit for the use of executive power. It's not conservative, it's authoritarian, and it should terrify Americans.
100%. And just for those who did not see what we're talking about today or heard what we're discussing, because you actually have real lives that you're living every day, there was a really extraordinary exchange between Trump's lawyer and Justice Sotomayor. And it was similar to the DC appeals court hearing where they had a similar back and forth about this concept of,
Correct.
well, can the president just send SEAL Team 6 to assassinate his political rival while he's president? And that's when Trump's lawyer said, well, it's a qualified yes. So there was a similar exchange today that was just as hair-raising as that exchange in the DC appeals court. Take a listen. We have that clip.
If the president decides that his rival is a corrupt person or orders someone to assassinate him, is that within his official acts that for which he can get immunity?
It would depend on the hypothetical, but we can see that could well be an official act.
It could, and why? Because he's doing it for personal reasons. He's not doing it like President Obama is alleged to have done it, to protect the country from a terrorist. He's doing it for personal gain. And isn't that the nature of the allegations here? That he's not doing these acts in furtherance of an official responsibility. He's doing it for personal gain.
I agree with that characterization of the indictment, and that confirms immunity, because the characterization is that there's a series of official acts that were done for an unlawful.
No, because immunity says even if you did it for personal gain, we won't hold you responsible. How could that be?
It's pretty extraordinary, you know? I mean, the founding fathers had a large debate about this when they were putting the Constitution together after we defeated the British Army that was run by a king. Like I said, I'm up here in Cambridge at Harvard, and I was sitting on a bench today in Camden, Cambridge Yard, next to the tree where George Washington first rallied his troops and took command in the Revolutionary War, which was pretty cool. I didn't realize that was over here, and I was like, "Wow, this is a really bit neat bit of history." Yeah, I was on the other side. I'm on the Radcliffe College Institute side. I was a little on the other side when I was here for my President Fellowship. So I never really came over here, but and I thought it got me thinking about like what we were doing and the divine right of kings and why it was so important to our founders that we did not have a king. Like that was the basic. We fought a war over this. And I just came from a dinner with some of the academics here, and it's like, and we had a whole discussion about this, and it broke my heart. A part of this conversation. One of the people at my table was a historian, and he said that when he was teaching history in Ohio before he came over to Harvard, that one of his students said to him, "Well, you're rich and you have the luxury of worrying about democracy. I don't have that luxury to worry about democracy." And that struck me. That a college student thinks that democracy is an elitist concept that doesn't apply to her. That is not the case. You don't have the luxury of not thinking about democracy. And I think that we have failed ourselves as a society and as a country, educating people as to why our democracy and maintaining it and protecting it is so important. It applies to everyone. When you go into the voting booth and you cast your ballot is worth just as much as the billionaire's ballot. And I think we have a lot of work to do to explain that to people to understand. So we have this idea of what's happening in the Supreme Court, and the idea that someone like Donald Trump thinks that he can just be a dictator, be a king, and have no accountability to anything is such an affront to our constitutional republic that it's hard to fathom. But there are millions of Americans out here who don't fully appreciate what that means. That's why what the Supreme Court is doing is so frustrating, that they have not had that sense of urgency, that they have not decided that, wait a minute, our oath of office and our responsibility here is to the Constitution, and the American people should know whether what the former president of the United States is doing is through a jury of his peers, whether he's convicted or not of it. Like, get off your asses. As my grandmother would say, shit or get off the pot already, Supreme Court. Our democracy is on the line here.
I've been calling it the red court for the last 6 months or so, and I really believe that this is a decision that if they decide that Donald Trump's ambit is so wide that the president has such unlimited powers, I believe it will rank in the Dred Scott decision, like the Plessy versus Ferguson decision, the Buck decision,
right.
Korematsu. I think it will be seen as one of the most heinous and deadly decisions that the court could possibly make. It will unleash an era of a fundamental imbalance between the three branches of government. It will be the Supreme Court, in essence, abrogating their responsibilities to serve as a judicial check in the system.
Yes.
It will reduce the power of the legislative and therefore the most representative branch of our government. This will reset the fundamental design of America. This is like taking the software out and erasing it all. And the power that it would give to bad actors as president. Because the other question today from Justice Jackson, when she asked, does this mean the White House, that the Oval Office could become a hub of criminality?
We have that clip. We have that clip. We should show people. Let's play it. Yeah.
Let me put this worry on the table. If the potential for criminal liability is taken off the table, wouldn't there be a significant risk that future presidents would be emboldened to commit crimes with abandon while they're in office? It's right now the fact that we're having this debate because OLC has said that presidents might be prosecuted. Presidents from the beginning of time have understood that that's a possibility. That might be what has kept this office from turning into the kind of crime center that I'm envisioning. But once we say no criminal liability, Mr. President, you can do whatever you want, I'm worried that we would have a worse problem than the problem of the president feeling constrained to follow the law while he's in office.
I respectfully disagree with that.
Of course he does. I mean,
it makes my brain explode that
I know
that there's an argument that anyone's even making the argument. I read some of the amicus briefs in this thing, and on the Trump side of the equation, like the state attorneys general arguing you can't do this because it's upsetting the ordinary order of American life. Let me tell you what's going to upset the ordinary order of American political life. If you have a Donald Trump second term with no legal restrictions on behavior, he will go in the White House and say, F you, I'm going to sell favors. F you, I'm going to do deals with foreign countries for my personal business right in the Oval Office and promise them things from the federal government. Because who's going to stop him?
Correct. I mean, we already saw the practice run, right? How many times have you said that January 6th was a practice run? And they made, and Justice Kagan, she used the example of a military coup as well, because I mean, we weren't that far away from that on January 6th. Right. Just wasn't the military this time. But let's play that clip.
Yeah. Well, he's gone. Let's say this president who ordered the military to stage a coup. He's no longer president. He wasn't impeached. He couldn't be impeached. But he ordered the military to stage a coup, and you're saying that's an official act.
I think it would depend.
That's immune.
I think it would depend on the circumstances whether it was an official act. If it were an official act, again, he would have to be impeached.
Well, what does that mean, depend on the circumstances? He was the president. He is the commander-in-chief. He talks to his generals all the time, and he told the generals, I don't feel like leaving office. I want to stage a coup. Is that immune?
If it's an official act, there needs to be impeachment and conviction beforehand because the framers viewed that kind of
If it's an official act, is it an official act?
If it's an official act, it's impeachment.
Is it an official act?
On the way you've described that hypothetical, it could well be. I just don't know. You'd have to, again, it's a fact-specific, context-specific determination.
That answer sounds to me as though it's like, yeah, under my test, it's an official act, but that sure sounds bad, doesn't it?
It sounds catastrophic is what it sounds.
Right. It sounds more than bad. Oh, it's a context. Depends on the context. No, it doesn't.
And by the way, for our MAGA viewers and our trolls, because y'all are out there, let's just take this case for a moment. And if you get what you think you want, and tomorrow Joe Biden wakes up, rolls out of bed, and says, "Launch a missile strike at Mar-a-Lago." Oh, go arrest Steve Bannon because he is in contact with enemy foreign intelligence sources.
Yeah.
And put him in the Florence Supermax in a deep, dark hole. Arrest Donald Trump and the Trump boys. Go out and shut down Newsmax and Fox because I believe they are dangerous to the country, and I don't care about the legality of it. If you open this door, you will never, ever like the outcome.
That is correct, because this case is bigger. This case is bigger than just Donald Trump, and that's something that people need to focus on. It's not just about Trump's behavior; it's about setting a precedent for the next president and the president after that, assuming Trump doesn't win and decide never to leave office again. On that note, we're going to bring in Harry Litman, who is a friend of the show, former federal prosecutor. He was in the courtroom today in New York, speaking of criminality, for the Trump's hush money case, which I know people don't like to use. It's actually
he was at the fun hearing today.
Yeah, he was at the fun hearing today. And Harry also hosts the podcast, The Talking Feds. So just bear with us because he is on the road. His internet has been a little janky. So we may have to, like right now, we may have to go in and out to him. But hopefully we'll get his internet squared away because I want to hear all about what he saw in the courtroom. Because I keep going back and forth.
I mean, the Pecker case today was amazing. I'm going to keep making Pecker puns. There's Harry.
I was waiting for the Pecker pun. Harry Litman, can you hear us?
I can hear you faintly.
Okay.
There's a kind of a Pecker echo still from the day, but I can hear you. I'm sorry, I've got a bad connection, but bring it.
No worries.
I just posted in the chat. Give us a rundown of what you saw today in the court with Pecker and the ongoing testimony.
Say it again.
Give us a rundown of how today went in the court with Pecker's ongoing testimony. Folks, it's live TV. Here we go.
It's live TV. Yeah. It's okay.
Well, it's really something. Yeah. All right. But I heard, Rick, you asked about what I saw today. So Pecker turns out to be a very effective first witness. He sets the whole table for them and makes what you could have seen as a kind of hush money case really look like, he has Trump in the room from 2015 at all the important junctures. And he himself, Pecker, is an oddly kind of affable, give it all up witness. He fesses up to many crimes of his own. And he's just, yep, I did that. We did that. But at every turn,
No.
We were just about to get to the meat.
I know. That's what she said.
Hey.
Well, that's okay. So I can pick up a little bit on the Pecker testimony today and something that Harry said. So based off of what others who were in the courtroom said, the affable thing, they were like, well, he's got full immunity. They gave him an immunity agreement so he can go out there and blab it all away. And he talked about the Karen McDougal case. And he talked about how concerned Trump world was about the Access Hollywood case. He talked about the catch and kill, again, how that all worked. He talked about how they paid Karen McDougal, the Playboy playmate, the one that said that she had the long-term, like almost a year-long affair with Trump. They paid her $150,000, and how he didn't expect to get paid back at that point because the lawyers said, yeah, you probably shouldn't get paid back because of the Arnold Schwarzenegger case. He was like, I don't think you want to get paid back. he thought at first he was going to get paid back, but then they were like, the lawyers are like, yeah, you're just going to have to eat this one. Because that's when it starts to become a crime. Things start to get a little dicey there. So it was all to lay the predicate for Donald Trump's involvement. And he was saying how he talked to Trump on the phone. Trump invited him to the White House for a dinner when Trump was president as a thank you. As a thank you. That was interesting. I think people were like, oh. And it was interesting, too, that Pecker said that his wife didn't want to come because Trump was like, yeah, bring your wife. She was like, yeah, I'm not trying to go. So he went anyway. I mean, the relationship with them was pretty incestuous in that Trump knew everything that was going on. And what the legal analysts have said is that where's the crime? It could have just been that Trump didn't know. His hands weren't really in it. And the prosecutors are laying the predicate to show, no. Trump was very involved in every aspect of this thing. Right. And Pecker is the one that's starting that off. I mean, he's just the first witness.
Well, I think you're going to end up with one big important thing here that is going to hurt the Trump folks is that David Pecker comes across as credible, and he is going to validate a lot of the testimony that Michael Cohen, our friend of the show also, our buddy Michael Cohen is going to make, where Trump would try to say, oh, Cohen's a liar. He doesn't know anything. But Michael is being validated by Pecker on this, I think, in a pretty meaningful way. And I think that ends up really giving Trump's lawyers a sense of anxiety here, because once you've got other people validating the testimony that Michael's going to give, which is extensive and devastating, I think you're going to end up with Pecker having played a very significant role in this case.
Yes, and that's another important point because Trump is obviously fuming about Michael Cohen. I mean, Michael Cohen went to jail. He went to prison because of this case. And he knows where all the bodies are buried and then some. And Trump is furious about this. And so they're trying to impugn his character because he got convicted of lying. But if you hear Michael tell it, what he lied about was really like dumb. You know what I mean? It wasn't like really the material things here. And there's more to this than just what Michael Cohen has to say, to your point. Of course. There's corroborating evidence from more than just Michael Cohen. The whole case isn't based on just Michael Cohen. And that's what Trump is worrying about because
we saw
Michael
today,
Cohen, there are receipts. There's receipts.
Yeah, and we saw today that validating once again Michael's testimony that Hope Hicks and Sarah Huckabee Sanders were also involved in discussing these catch and kill operations. So it ramifies out further from Trump. I mean, we may see the governess of Arkansas on the stand at some point, which would crack me up. We're going to see Hope Hicks on the stand at some point, which Donald Trump is not going to enjoy.
I'll be curious to see if he attacks Hope because he loves her and, because she's very pretty and presents well and has always been one of his favorites. So is he going to go after her? Because he hasn't gone after Pecker, despite the fact that Pecker's been... Yeah.
You'll notice he said about Pecker today, he's a very nice man.
Right.
Which tells you, I wrote about this yesterday in an article called Trump's Pecker Problem, because I had to.
Oh, yeah. How could you not?
How could I not? But basically what I said was, you notice something, everywhere in the MAGA media ecosystem, they're silent about David Pecker. Everywhere on Fox, Newsmax, OAN, all the talk radio weirdos, all of the social media influencers, they're all silent about it. And Trump himself is silent about it. Why is that? Because the word has gone down that David Pecker knows where Trump's world could be rocked and rocked badly. So I hope the prosecution at some point asks, are there any women that you caught and killed that we haven't heard about yet?
Right. Wasn't there? Yeah. So, wasn't there a story about how there was like a safe where they would keep some of these the information and stuff? Like
it used to be in Lachlan Cartwright's office.
That's right. He was on MSNBC or CNN or something talking about that, and how one day he couldn't get it closed because it was so old and rickety that he took something out, and then he tried to get it closed, and he was like, "Holy shit, I can't get it closed," because God knows what was in there. Holy cow!
Yeah, no. Look, I mean, it's one thing to be a guy like Pecker who runs this fake news operation, but it's another thing.
Well, he's out now, right?
But it's another thing when they end up playing a meaningful role in the campaign itself, and that's what they were doing. That's what they agreed to do to help Trump in the campaign. Never reporting it, of course, as an in-kind contribution or as an expense. So
yes.
Do we want to have Harry call my cell phone, or have somebody, and I can just we can put him on speaker?
Yeah, or he could just do audio only. Sometimes the bandwidth of video, because I think it's important that we try to get some of Harry's perspective on this. First. Yeah, we'll try to do audio only, and we can still while Michelle is furiously
laboring mightily to make this thing work.
Yes.
What you can't see behind the scenes is that Michelle has 17 balls in the air right now.
I know.
You know what? He can try my phone number. Michelle, here, I'm going to put him in the. I'm not going to say it on the. I'm not going to say.
No,
it
he can just.
Okay, I turned off my camera.
Oh, there we go.
But it's funny because I can still see you. Why can I see you? Okay, my camera's off.
You're just
That's
lucky.
Okay. Yep. That's all right. That's all right.
All right.
Go for it, Harry. Tell us what you saw today. What stood out to you? Go.
Okay. So many things when you're actually there. You had juries that were really attentive, taking a lot of notes, fouling past Trump without looking at him at all. You had Trump kind of hanging in there, but going to sleep every once in a while. You had a judge who had really a firm control of the courtroom. To me, the big kind of atmospheric dynamic is that there was a sort of shift a couple days ago when Merchan told him, "Sit down, Mr. Trump," and he sat down meekly. He's still acting up out of court, but he looks small in a way that I think is really undermines a big part of Trump's, bravado and appeal. He seems diminished in a way that is the opposite of how he portrays himself. Now he still had several more comments outside of court. There's going to be a show cause hearing. What's Merchan going to do? Because his tools are limited under New York law. But definitely, a lot of trial is sort of rote and boring, and he was just sitting there in a way that he's never had to do all his life. That was the sort of big kind of visual impression that I took.
So Harry, let me ask you this question. At the end of the day, the judge said he was going to do the show cause hearing.
You're hearing me? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Good to go.
Give me more. Give me more.
What are
more questions?
What are his possibilities when if he holds Trump in contempt for all the behavior and the truthing and everything else?
Harry, can you hear us?
Can you ask it, Tara?
Yes. What are Judge Merchan's options? When are we going to find out about the gag order enforcement? What can he actually do to Trump?
Yeah, so at the end of the day, he said, "I'm granting the show cause order," meaning there's going to be a hearing. You've got to show cause why you shouldn't be held, and it's something like 13 of them, and a few of them are really so beyond the pale. The problem for Merchan is you want as much space as possible between remonstrating him and putting him in the pokey. And he now, under New York law, they've been asked to give him, $1,000 for each actual violation. I think he will give him $1,000 for a few violations. Then what? Because it's in Trump's, hands, right. But really not that many more cards for Merchan, who controls the courtroom pretty well. but to play. So does he then move to, there's a nice holding cell in the back, Mr. Trump. Maybe you need an hour there, maybe 2, maybe overnight, but he doesn't really have a lot of cards to play. I do think it really feels to me that at least inside the courtroom, Trump is cowed. But, it's these outside statements he comes out, and especially the kind of trashing of Michael Cohen that, it's like a Tourette syndrome thing with him. He just can't stop. And also, I think the trial's not going that well for him. And, based on how previous trials have been, he kind of moves to a strategy of ginning up a kind of antagonism with the judge, almost as an appellate issue. Merchan's very good at not taking the bait. But, will he actually stay in, metaphoric short pants and sit nicely in the chair? It's hard to say, but the biggest thing I take away, and this is the first time I've been, within 30 feet of Trump, is he is not the boss. He is not the, the head of he doesn't have
the alpha.
Nothing. He really isn't. And so
that's interesting.
Yeah, it's palpable.
That's something that I think a lot of people are going to see, because we're only on day 7 of this thing. And isn't it supposed to go on for like 6 weeks or something, or a couple of weeks? What's he going to look like by then?
That's exactly right. It's going faster, and I think it will go fast. And I also think he won't testify. So when it comes to his turn, he'll just sit there meekly in the chair still. That also will truncate the trial, but it would still, another 4 weeks. Pecker has been in the, witness chair almost the entire week. And it looks as if the Trump team will not stipulate to something that would, to anything that would make it easier to admit evidence. So there's all these totally rote requirements that they can force them to go through. Like, is this a real business record? Is this authentic handwriting? And they, at the end of the day, the DA asked the judge to enforce a subpoena for the Trump organizational custodian. That implies to me that they're going, that guy is going to have to come to the stand and actually, go through each of these documents pretty much out of contrariness from Trump. So that could extend things. But the story, as they're telling it, it was a very smart choice to start with Pecker, and they've really converted it into a kind of not just about aiding the election and then covering it up, but a long standing starting in 2015. And I think we're going to see next week Stormy Daniels, and Pecker has gone through basically everything leading up to her. And, he's made it seem like a combination of sleazy and criminal. They, even on cross-examination, what they basically elicited today was, oh yeah, he's done this for Schwarzenegger and Ari Emanuel, the agent, and he does it a lot. But I don't think that necessarily, makes Trump smell all that much better.
Figuratively and literally, apparently, from what we hear.
I was a little far away to actually be able to give barnyard suggestions, but so I couldn't quite tell that. It came very close to me for a time, but I was struck by the hair more. I guess it distracted me. Yeah.
Yeah. Rick wants to know, since you can't hear, I'm going to ask his question. He wants to know, does Pecker's testimony validate or corroborate what we anticipate Michael Cohen is going to say?
You bet it does, and it's a big part of what they're doing. And you know who else? Well, I know you mentioned her briefly, Rick. Hope Hicks, man, she's gonna, there, because they've already put her in a few meetings, phone calls. But yes, they know that Cohen's going to be, and you can tell from Trump's out of court statements, they're the centerpiece for them is going to be to try to really savage Cohen. But so much of it is, Pecker's already said they're all three together. Right. Cohen has a big role. Now, Cohen, they also have made it clear that, he's got some, his own extraneous requests, but he gets Pecker to push Trump to give him a bonus. But, basically they're very methodical, chapter and verse. Here's this meeting. Here's where Cohen was. Here's that meeting. And so I think it's going to seem, that his account is basically credible, as it kind of seems to me. And I think a lot of us, right? He was totally for Trump before, obviously, and he turned against him, and he turned against him by telling the truth. And there hasn't been any detail yet that we know that Cohen's going to testify to that at least Pecker's been inconsistent about. So that's another big reason I think they put him up first. And he's at the center of things. That's also with McDougal. I don't know if they'll actually bring her on the stand, but the main event now, they've all been set up for Stormy Daniels, all this paper stuff. And, that's the really guts of the whole story.
And that they will put her on before Michael Cohen, correct?
Well, we'll see. So look, I think they're, in general, the sort of standard trial lawyer theory here would be get Cohen off and as fast as you can, but they're going to have they're going to want to cross-examine him for a couple of days and have him be neither first nor last. Cohen is someone they're going to want to validate. So we're starting to be in the broad middle of the trial. I think that's where we'll see him, but we'll see him carry as little independent as possible. That's one reason why you may see first a lot of this paper stuff, because that, in addition to what Pecker will have to say, Hicks has to say, corroborates Cohen's testimony.
Mm-hmm.
So in the course of our conversation before, we were just talking about the gag order and the show cause hearing and what could happen to Trump. And there were reports out there that said the Secret Service is already starting to make plans in case he gets thrown into the pokey, as you say, but not Rikers. It would be the courthouse cell. And I think even
so, right? He wants to be, at least that's some kind of medium sort of prospect, but people do contempt sentences, and you can get up to 30 days under this statute. That wouldn't be in the holding cell. But I think he's got to try to do it in gradations and hope that Trump behaves.
It's like literal timeout, like a child. It's outrageous. So with that, it was during that hearing that Todd Blanche made a lot of mistakes, and the judge was like, "You're losing credibility with the court." Rick wants to know, is Todd Blanche worth the money?
I feel for Todd Blanche, because I actually think he's got 3 pretty competent lawyers, but a second one now took a hit today. So Blanche, I've never had a judge say that to me, but I would be, totally, but he's in trouble as Blanche. He's between a rock and a hard place, because the right move to make would be or the conventional one, which you might expect is, in this kind of case, the defense would be, look, the client's a sleazebag, but he's not a criminal. But Trump, you can't do that with Trump on your right shoulder. And what got Blanche into trouble was exactly saying, "Oh, Trump knows about the gag order. Oh, Trump can comply with it. What are you talking about?" Today also, we had, at the end of the day, Bove and the third lawyer here doing a pretty good job on cross-examination, and then he stepped in it, and he's going to have a very bad first 10 minutes in trial tomorrow. He basically told Pecker, well, I want to refresh your recollection. Look at this document. Does it say anywhere here, as you said before, that that Hope Hicks was at the meeting? And Pecker was sort of flummoxed and looked at it, and he said, "I guess not, but it doesn't seem to be talking about the meeting." And in fact, it wasn't. So the jury left. Merchan was really chastise the lawyer. And first thing they're going to hear tomorrow, the jury, is there was a suggestion that, he had not been forthcoming or had not remembered something that was in the document. Guess what? It wasn't in the document. That was improper impeachment. And he is the second lawyer now, and then there was one, Susan Necklace, who, that's pretty bad hits in front of Mayor Chen. They haven't been in front of the jury, fortunately, but pretty bruising days. And he'd been doing okay on cross-examination till then.
Well, before I let you go, I wanted to.
I feel like I couldn't talk because of the sound. Yeah.
No, that's okay, because I want to ask you about the Arizona indictments too, because I think people are curious about that. But before we go to that, so in summary, if you had to wrap it up, where we are today for the people who are watching, where we're at, and what should we expect in the next couple of days?
Yeah, look, they've laid the tracks that they want to lay. It's a track starting with 2015. It's all about covering his ass with the election, and that's what leads them into criminal conduct. And so now I think the train's going to continue down this path. They've really set it up for Stormy Daniels. Pecker takes leave of the whole thing. He gets into a sort of argument with Michael Cohen because he realizes there's a campaign finance problem with basically giving the campaign this, by donating to McDougal. That could be seen as so he's out. But now we've set up, what do they do now? And that's where Cohen, at Trump's behest, we've had many times where Pecker said, like, Michael Cohen could not pay for lunch if Donald Trump didn't approve it. So it's really been, it's going to be really clear that the money paid for Stormy we know exactly why. And that's basically where we're going in the next few days. And I think there'll still be a little bit more before they call Michael Cohen to the stand, which will have, Trump's lawyers licking their chops.
Crazy.
Well, today, Trump didn't go after Cohen or any of the witnesses. Maybe he finally listened to his lawyer for half a day. We all know that will probably last all of 5 minutes, because as soon as Michael Cohen takes the stand, I cannot imagine Trump is going to be able to control himself after he gets out of the courtroom. And that'll be a whole nother set of problems for him. But something he said today—
I don't disagree, but I just want to tell you my main impression from being in the courtroom and looking at him is this was not an imposing, formidable Donald Trump. This was a kind of wise and, small guy brought to heel. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, I think that's important for people to know. Yeah, we like to see that, because this is where we don't have cameras in the courtroom. We've got guys like you describing it, and we can see that when he walked out, because it's clear to me that their strategy is that when he walks out of the courtroom, he's going to give a campaign speech, right? Because he's bitching that he can't campaign, which he can on Wednesdays and on weekends. He has chosen not to, like yesterday. But today, you could see it. He looked deflated. He looks terrible.
That's the perfect word. That's the perfect word.
Yeah. And he started to go off about the economy and going after Joe Biden. And he made a comment today that was infuriating. Rick, I know you heard this, that he referred to Charlottesville as being a peanut. What happened in Charlottesville in 2017 with the neo-Nazis, the Jews will not replace us stuff, and a woman being killed. He said, oh, no, that's, Charlottesville's peanuts compared to what's going on college campuses today. It's ridiculous. Talking about the pro-Palestinian protests that are emerging on campuses now. He's doing this to distract from the fact that it's not going well for him in court. And I think the worst thing his campaign wants is him reminding people that neo-Nazis, who he said there were good people on both sides, comparing that to what's happening right now. Nobody wants to bring back Charlottesville. It wasn't a good look for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the truth is, he really hasn't been doing much except talking about the trial. So if this continues to sort of go poorly for him, what exactly, this would be a question for Rick, if only I could hear him, but what exactly is he going to do on as far as the campaign goes? He's, his whole campaign has been to play the martyr here.
The biggest rule in campaigns is that you can never get a lost day back.
Okay, you were asking me about Arizona?
Okay, so I'm just going to tell you what Rick said. He said
Yeah.
the biggest rule, one of the biggest rules in campaigns is that you can't get a lost day back. So every day matters, and he's losing these days
Right.
because he's on trial because he's a criminal defendant, and so he's got to make use, I guess, of the days that he has when he. That's what these little pressers after each court hearing is about for him. But yeah, while he's on trial, Joe Biden is on the campaign trail in Pennsylvania, needling Donald Trump, making fun of him, making fun of his stamina, going after him, and it's been glorious. Biden is doing exactly what he should be doing right now. Transitioning to Arizona, because since we're talking about criming, yesterday, in the middle of all of this going on, the Arizona Attorney General hands down these indictments about fake electors again. This is now the fourth state, add Michigan to that as well, that is going after people for the illegality of the fake elector scheme, trying to overturn the election. Can you explain to people what it means to be an unindicted co-conspirator? Because Donald Trump was named as an unindicted co-conspirator along with a couple of others. But what exactly does that mean for people?
Yeah, so thanks. I mean, there are a couple different things it could mean. In Trump's case, it means he's a co-conspirator. That means he entered into the unlawful agreement to try to use the false electors to steal the election. And they're choosing not to indict him, unindicted co-conspirator number one. They might down the line. It looks as if Chesbro also is unindicted co-conspirator. And what that seems to mean here is he cooperated. But this indictment is pretty sprawling. It's because it's got all the electors, but then it's got 7 of the Trump circle. It's got good old Rudy Giuliani, Jenna Ellis, but Boris Epstein finally meets his
I hate that guy.
criminal charge, and so these are guys who are close to Trump. And certainly you think about Jenna Ellis and Rudy Giuliani, don't have any money. And, so there's going to be real pressure on them. I think the dynamic you can expect, and I've spoken to a number of people in Arizona, I think it's going to be cleaner and less chaotic than in Fulton County. For one, it's the state AG.
I hope so.
Not just a DA for a county. And I think people anticipate a lot of pleas from, the 11 are people who want to have a future. They're not like Walt Nauta, who are tied to the hip with Trump forever.
Sure.
I think they will plead quickly, and some of them spoke directly to Trump, but others to Giuliani and Jenna Ellis. I don't think it's plausible that it goes to trial this year, but it's a serious one that a president can't pardon. And I think they've got them really, dead to rights. They were triumphant about it. After doing it, they basically held a press conference and went into
it's on video.
Dance.
They videotaped themselves in doing the crime. They were so arrogant and asinine. Exactly. They videotaped it, and they brought me
really in the category of what the hell were they thinking? Yeah.
Yes, right. My gosh. Well, I mean, they took it so far. People probably forget this because it was 4 years ago. It feels like it was 25 years ago. But these dumbasses brought the fake elector ballot things, signature things, to the National Archives. As if that's where the real electors go, where that paperwork goes. They tried to do that, and the National Archives and threw that right in the trash because it wasn't even worth the paper it was written on. Another name that was in that list is a name we haven't heard in a while.
I mean, I really felt like they were having fun. Yeah, just having a little fake party.
Yeah, it was crazy. Another name that was another name that was listed that we haven't heard in a while is Mark Meadows. Where the hell is Mark Meadows, and how is he not more front and center? He's got to be cooperating, Harry.
So true. So true. Well, he's cooperated partially. He's the guy with the best lawyer of the lawyers in the whole game, and he was really adroit he skated through the raindrops with Congress, skated through the raindrops with Jack Smith. He cooperated just a little, just enough. Fulton County looked like a pretty big problem for him, and he tried to get himself out by removal and immunity. No, and it looks like if and when that comes to trial, he's hurting. But now Arizona, this is a whole nother one that his, George Terwilliger, his lawyer, didn't even know about it at the time. He was still blacked out, was Meadows, of the indictment, because they hadn't notified him yet. But he figures in here. And remember, he has been very quiet and effectively represented, but nobody knows more about where the bodies are buried than Mark Meadows. And he's been able to sort of, bob and weave. But Arizona, this is not like a trivial little crime. This really is a microcosm of trying to steal the whole election, and he's going to have to answer for it. And there's no, Trump can't possibly pardon him. You talk about, could Trump pardon himself? I don't think he could. But Trump can make, I think, state prosecutions maybe hold them in abeyance as far as he goes, but not as far as these guys go. And there's going to be preliminary appearances in the first couple of weeks. I think it's looking like it would be about a 5-year sentence, a genuine 5-year sentence.
Wow.
This really is a haymaker that lands flush on Mark Meadows' chin.
Well, we're going to stay tuned to watch that. Harry Litman, it's always a pleasure, even with the technical difficulties. If you don't listen to Harry on the Talking Feds podcast, please listen and subscribe. Yeah. And if you're out in the San Diego area, Harry has this really cool speaker series, and he's brought in great guests, and he's bringing Jen Psaki out there on May, 15th?
May 15th. We're doing a whole speaker series, and she's coming up with her new book. So thanks for mentioning that. And yes. I hope this is salvageable. I'm so sorry about the technical problem.
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
All right.
Don't worry about it. We got it done. Thanks, Harry. We appreciate you.
Invite me back, and I'm going to use a cord. Okay. Thank you very much.
We'll have you back.
Please. Oh, one more thing about Talking San Diego. We hope in the fall to feature Project Lincoln, Rick Wilson, and Tara Setmeyer. I sure hope you guys will come. I know we're already talking about it with your many representatives. So thank you.
We hope to make that happen. Right. Anything for you, Harry.
All right.
We'll see you soon.
You guys are the best. You're the best.
Thanks, Harry.
Bye-bye.
We love Harry. And, listen, the gremlins happen all the time. It doesn't matter. We got it done. It was important to hear his perspective, especially since he was in the courtroom. I would love to be able to sit in the courtroom for a day and just watch the demeanor and the disposition of the jurors and Trump.
The most fun in that courtroom is our friend George Conway, because he's there, and you know that Trump is just fucking seething, knowing George is back there like, Yep. You know Trump's brain is boiling because
my God. Not only that, George also was a big factor in the E. Jean Carroll case that has cost Trump almost $100 million. So there's all of the things.
There's all of the things. On that case was like, no.
Yeah, exactly. Before we wrap up the show, just two more quick things on the political side of stuff. Arizona, like we said, that indictment came down kind of out of nowhere. We're like, wait, oh my God. So Arizona is really becoming ground zero here with so many things. You can't tell me that reminding people of the shit show Arizona was after the election, that's not going to have an impact, along with the abortion stuff and the chaos. I mean, you remember the cyber ninjas? We were making fun of that in 2021 when they brought in the cyber ninjas.
We're worried about the Chinese bamboo ballots.
Oh my God, it was just so ridiculous. And then they found out that actually Joe Biden got more, or was it Biden got more votes? Right. It was Trump's, it was crazy. But so Arizona is really shaping up to be ground zero politically here. And you've got that Carrie Lake and Ruben Gallego Senate race. It's hugely important for control of the Senate. My friends down at UVA, Larry Sabato and the Crystal Ball, at the Center for Politics, they've actually shifted that race now from likely Republican to like leans. So they're changing stuff.
And I will tell you, the damage that the Arizona legislature has done to itself and the Republicans up and down the ballot there, cannot be overstated.
Yeah, toss up. It's Pennsylvania where they put it to lean Republican, because that's something else that happened this week. Pennsylvania had their primary, and guess what? Joe Biden won 91% of the vote, but Nikki Haley won over 150,000 votes. She got 155,000 votes. She's not even in the race anymore. And it's a closed primary in Pennsylvania. So that's 155,000 Republicans who did not vote for Donald Trump.
35.8% of the vote. That is
extraordinary. Yep. Donald Trump lost Pennsylvania by 88,000 votes last time. So that's a good news. That is good news for Joe Biden. Those are gettable, persuadable voters. And so that's good news too for Joe Biden.
One thing to remember about it, the number she pulled in Bucks County, folks, which is the largest, most significant swing county in a big swing
outside
state.
Outside Philly.
About 40% of the vote in the Republican Party that voted for Nikki Haley. If half of those people decide to vote for Joe Biden or stay home, it's very hard for Donald Trump to win that state.
Correct.
If that number holds up, it really changes the overall map dramatically.
It does. It really does. The Philadelphia suburbs are a key to Joe Biden's reelection. And if that primary vote is any indication, I mean, we're still a long ways away, but that gives me hope, and it should give everybody hope that suburban voters, and there's a big chunk of Republicans that we call the Bannon line that do not want anything to do with Donald Trump. We've got to give them the permission structure to vote for Joe Biden.
Yep.
So on that note, speaking of winning, Lincoln Project, last week we said we were at the Polly's, Michelle and I, we took home the gold. And guess what? We won another Webby. So we want to say thank you to everyone who voted. We won the People's Choice Award again this year for the Webbies for the America or Trump series. And we'll be in New York getting that award on May, I think, 12th or 13th. So
yeah, 13th.
13th. Like yeah. So thank you to everyone who voted. We could not have done that without you. And we're so grateful for that. Well, it's been a hell of a week. It's been a hell of a day. And we'll see you all next week. And God knows what happens between now and then. See you all next week.